Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today I'm going to show you how to mix a hip hop beat. I'll just hit play without the effects and then I'll turn on the effects I originally had and then we'll mix this from scratch. So here's without the effects.
I gotta have it, it's not a habit, feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up, this is a closed casket, this flow's mastered, I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough, we're spitting, off beat in my old spot, how you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby, you're not, gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back, and I'm still spitting, and they might like, no you ain't that, better put that money down, better throw that gas in the tree, better make it work, just like they've been working me, and when this album over, work for nobody free. When this album over, work for nobody but me.
Alright, let's turn on the effects I had on the first time I made the beat.
Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back, and I'm still spitting, and they might like, no you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas in the tree, better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me.
All right, so I'm going to make a couple adjustments here. So firstly, we're going to leave some of the sample processing on. So for example, let's just hear what I did with the sample. First thing I did was I loaded up a multiband to take care of some of the zones because it had the drums still on the sample. So to take care of some of those samples like the kick, let me turn it back on, hold up. So the kick and the snare and that vocal was a little piercing and it was distracting. And they were moving the beat, so I didn't want those to override my drums. So I just compressed, where the vocal was getting heavy and then where the kick was getting heavy. So that's just a part of sampling. When you keep the drums, you got to deal with the transients that come with the drums so that you can add your own transient material. Nextly, I added this plugin Cooper Time Cube that just widens out the track. I have it automated, so let me turn on where it's automated. And it widens out the track so that now the sample's on the sides and not competing with the drums in the middle. So in the beginning, I don't have any drums. But when the drums come in, the sample gets widened out by this plugin here. So now it's wide and it has less chance of colliding with the drums in the center. Okay, so really it's just about turning up the volume when you're kicking and snare. Most people are just picking the wrong sounds. So you can fix a snare, but you can't really change the identity of a snare. So sometimes it's not how to mix your song, it's that you guys are picking the wrong sounds. If you want better sounds, go to our Discord. It's discord.gg/busyworksbeats. I'll leave a link in the video description below, because if you guys don't have the right sounds, it doesn't matter what you do to the sound, it's just gonna always sound wrong. So in this case, I picked the right kick, I picked the right snare to match the vibe of the song. Okay, so the next thing we need to address is the kick and the bass happening. So they're fighting for the same space. So let me just generally give you guys a concept of how to handle low end. You got to figure out where the fundamental frequency is. So on the bass, the fundamental frequency is about 40 to 50 hertz, somewhere around 40 to 50 hertz. Okay, that's where the fundamental of the bass is. Now on the kick, the fundamental is around 50. So it's fighting for that same space. So what we need to do is tell the kick to turn down the volume of the bass every time the kick hits. So it goes like this, real quick for the bass. It just cuts the volume, goes back to normal, cuts the volume, goes back. That way they don't both play at the same time, because what happens is when +1 meets +1, you get 2. And it just gets louder in this area, 50 hertz area. So to tame some of that zone, which can be overly done, we just want to use sidechain. You don't always have to sidechain. What I'll do is I'll select my kick, right click on the bass and sidechain to this track. Now we're going to go over to the bass and we're going to set up a multi-band compressor. Okay, then you don't need this specific compressor. we're going to click here. We're going to click in the zone where those two overlap. So again, it's about 80 hertz and below, they overlap. Let's highlight 80 hertz and below. We're going to go to expert mode, sidechain mode, okay, and then turn it on external input. We need to go to the settings here under the plugin processing, right click to select your kick. And then now every time the kick hits, it will lower the volume of the bass in this specific range. So in this case, the range is set to -6, so we'll never compress more than -6. So it's just cutting those frequencies that you might not hear audibly, but you know, in the song, those two are stacking up. And you can set the attack to fast and the release to fast so that it doesn't compress too long. Just enough for that kick to come through and then release. Now, if your kick and your bass are clashing more in the higher end, like around 200 to 500, you would select that zone and then select your sidechain input. But in this case, they're not clashing in that area, so we don't need that. Subtle difference, but so now you can turn these up without them clashing. So what I want to do is get a little more texture out of the kick. So what I'm going to do is run it through standard clip. You could use any clipping plugin you like. My favorite is becoming standard clip. I use K-Clip, I use standard clip, there's soft clipper, there's gold clip. There's a lot of clipping tools. I'm going to use this one. Just going to push the gain into the plugin and then change out the saturation type to Pro. I'll exaggerate this and I'll solo the kick so you guys can hear the texture. So here's before. So here's the kick. And let's solo a section here. Now let's turn it on. Hear that knock. So it's a little aggressive. So let's turn down the output volume a little bit. Okay, let's do it before and after. Here's before. Here's after. Whole different tone. Okay, so now I'm going to use an EQ to add some of that sub energy into the kick. So let's boost it at about, my favorite spots are 75 hertz and 60 hertz for low end stuff. So let's boost this. Now remember, this kick's identity sits more around 50 than it does 75. So we're going to use 60 hertz in this case because it's just closer to 50. So I'm going to type in 60 hertz and just boost that to add more roundness to the kick, make it more sine wave based. Okay, so let's play before and after. So here's before the effect. And we're also sitting at -4 dB. Here's after. Now we're sitting at -1, so we need to pull it back 3 dB on the output to match. Okay, so let's do it before and after. Here's before. All right, now here's after. Okay, it just sounds bigger and more fierceful. So that's something I would do to change the tone of the kick. So let's hear everything.
Close casket. This flow's master. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough.
Now, because this bass has a lot of harmonics, they're called, you can also widen the range. So instead of just 80 and below, we're going to widen the range so that every time that kick hits, it lowers the volume. And this is because the bass has so many harmonics in the sound, it's overriding the presence of the kick.
Close casket. This flow's master. I'm a whole has-been.
So now we're doing more of an EDM type sidechain where we're just ducking the sound completely.
Close casket. This flow's master. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spots. Close casket.
Another way you can kind of separate your bass from your kick is to widen out the bass on the side. So this is already widened, but we're going to enhance the sides of the bass.
Close casket. This flow's master. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spots. Close casket. This flow's master. I'm a whole has-been.
All right, so Isotope Ozone's probably the best one to solo each like side image. So let's use their EQ for now, just to demonstrate the side from the mono. So let's turn off the kick and turn off the samples. So now all we have is the bass. And we are going to switch this to mid-side mode. And then we're going to go to side solo and then switch it to side EQ. And let's hear what this, if there is even stereo on the bass. Maybe there's not. Okay, so the bass just feels wide. That's interesting. It's a very big bass. So what we could do to widen it is add chorusing, stereo widener effects. So in that case, it causes too many effects that we're going to have to add. So forget the technique I was going to show you guys. But basically, you could widen it with the chorus or widen it with the stereo widener and then boost the high mids and the highs on the stereo signal. And that will keep the buzzy tone of the bass. And then you could pull down some of the lower mids and lower frequencies so it doesn't compete with the kick. So basically, with the lower frequencies, you just want to make sure those low frequencies aren't stacking up and competing for the same space. I consider sounds like people in a room. If you have two big people, which is like bass, they're going to collide if you have two big people trying to stand next to each other in the same spot. And so with bass is the same exact way. So we want to make sure we're giving them space in this case. So in this case, this sounds good together, even though the bass is mono. Because it's the big sound, so it sounds wide, even though it is. Now, FL Studio has a new spreader plugin. Let me see if this will mess up the imaging of it. So we could spread this. It looks like they've updated this. So we could switch this to cut frequencies below a certain point, and let's separate. What's separation here? Separation versus spread. Let's try spread. Let's turn it on. So now the higher frequencies are on the side. Okay, so it also makes the track feel bigger. Let's hear this in context though. Because remember, the sample is on the side, so you don't want to overly stuff one or the other. Let's turn it on and off, see if it... So it's not what is right, it's where does the bass get the most impact. I kind of like it widened, but if it gets annoying, we'll probably pull it back mono. So let's widen the signal, just not a lot. So again, it's about attention. And when we widen the sounds, now those higher frequencies of the bass are more present. They're in our face because they have their own space. So the tricky part here is widening the sound does get it out the way of the kick, but it also makes it more present to the ear. So if your goal is to keep the bass tucked behind the kick, you might actually want to keep it mono and just lower the volume. Because now it's more pronounced, the high frequency. So I'm going to mess with the texture of the kick to see how much we can push it through. Okay, so now that I've added more texture to the kick, it fits nicely with that bass being widened like that. You can still go in and mess with the mono signal so that it's not building up around those low mids. Let me solo the bass and the kick. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. So we're just listening to. It's very subtle, but we're taking away some of the energy of that low mid section. So now the kick has a little more of that second and third harmonic to dominate that area, and then the bass can dominate the high mids and highs on the sides. So they're both playing at the same time. That's how you combine kicks and bass without getting rid of either or. We can also widen the actual bass. So let's mess with the low. Now we get the bass on the side.
closed casket.
And it's out of the way of the kick. So now they can both be heard. You have the kick in the middle, and then
Closed casket. This flows
but it does take away some of the impact.
closed casket.
This sounds a lot cooler.
I'm a whole has-been.
Let's just turn the volume of the bass down.
Off beat in my old spot. Closed casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's
Let's hear it with the
tough.
sample.
We're spitting. Off beat in my old spot. Closed casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a
Turn the
whole
snare up just a little bit.
I know it's tough.
We're gonna use the channel volume here to turn the snare up.
Closed casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting. Off beat in my old spot. Closed casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting. Off beat in my old spot. Closed casket. This flow's mastered.
All right, let's hear where the sample's not spread, just so we can see how all the energy stacks up. So right here,
Better make it work, just like they've been working me. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. Better make it work, just like they've been working. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. Closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know
so now we need to figure out, at this stage of mixing, we're gonna ask, where's the attention going? What's the main thing that's jumping out? So far, the bass is the main event, and then the vocals are kind of secondary.
better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. Closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back.
So also the sample has bass in it. So we need to be careful with the bass because all these bass elements can stack up easily in the low end because they're slower and so they stack up faster. Whereas higher frequencies, they're very fast. They don't stack up as easily as bass. So we have bass on the sides that we also need to monitor. Now the bass frequency, I have this tamed with an EQ. It's a dynamic EQ. So everything below 115 Hertz is basically being cut out so that it's not stacking up. But there's a lot of bass in the sample. Okay, so we could even pull this down further. Let's try a wider range here. So that was at, let's do like negative 10 dB. So this way, you know, that doesn't get in the way of our new bass that we've added to the side information. So hopefully you guys can see, it's just about where does your bass frequency start to stack up and build. That's why your tracks sound muddy most of the time. So it's the side information and the middle information.
Closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot.
So again, what we could do to kind of let this bass be more organic in the sample is pull back some of that dynamic EQ that we just added. And then we're gonna have to cut out the lows that are being widened with this spreader plug using our low bypass.
Closed casket, this flow's mastered.
So we're basically making,
Closed casket, this flow's mastered.
let me hear the bass. Okay, so now we're getting rid of the low frequencies on the side information, but we are also getting rid of the actual bass. That's the tricky part. So I don't know what this mono button does. It doesn't sound like it's pulling the bass frequencies mono. It just feels like it's getting rid of the bass. So we're gonna blend this with the sample. So it's a blend. It's a blending. It's not just cutting one or the other. So their bass feels more organic to the sample. So I'm going to boost their bass on the side and let's see how much of our bass we can add in without it sounding artificial. But now you can see that their bass is now dominating and our bass is more of a fallback harmonic. So it's a blending. It's not like either or. So we're going to listen to the track and I'm just going to go back and forth until we get a nice balance.
Close casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me.
So again, I like their bass because it fits in with the sample. It doesn't feel like it's an added instrument.
Close casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. Close casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it.
So now I'm going to start dropping sounds out and see how important a sound actually is.
Close casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back.
So what I'm going to do with the sample is because their bass sounds so good, we're going to use saturation on their bass. And let's only saturate the low end here. We don't want to saturate the high. So let's turn off that one. Let's actually just turn the power button off on the highs and then click on the lows and then saturate the lows. I'm going to solo this so we can hear what's happening. And because we've widened the sound, it's going to have a nice texture to it.
Close.
So I'm saturating only the frequencies below about 60 hertz so that it creates upper harmonics to fill in some of that bass tone.
This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's
So hopefully you guys are learning it's a back and a forth in this. There's no like do this every single time.
close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free.
Okay, so now we're going to listen to the mixed bus where everything combines and we're going to start mixing here. And if stuff builds up here, then we can always go back and fix specific things about the individual sound itself. So now the vocals, we're not going to really mix these to sound good because they're AI generated, basically. We remove them from the song. So it has artifacts that you wouldn't have in a natural vocal. So me showing you how to mix the vocals wouldn't do anything for this track. But I'll mix this a little bit.
Close casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. Close casket. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't flipping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting, and they might like, no, you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it.
What I'm going to do is just have its original chain. That way I'm not, let me see if I can control Z all the way back. Because I had a very specific compressor from Pro C2. Just want to use that setting. Hopefully it lets me go that far back. All right, here we go. So I had a de-esser I'll show you guys what I was using on this.
Close casket.
So this is the original
Close casket.
with no effects. So with effects, it sounds like this.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been.
So basically de-essing the sample because it had artifacts
Close casket.
and using a range of 4 dB in that case. We're going to set it to 2 dB.
Close casket.
See, it gets a little harsh.
Close casket.
And compressor mode, basically, we have it on clean. I thought it was on vocal mode.
Close casket.
Let's switch it to vocal mode just to see.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gonna tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Gonna take
And again, this is not a vocal mixing tutorial. This vocal is more of like a sound than it was an actual vocal performance. And then I have an EQ cutting out some of the frequencies where they were getting heavy resonance.
close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has.
So that's just a tone more than it is a vocal. I just want to make that clear. Okay, so now that we have everything set up, here's my original mix bus. I was running through Saturn 2, Pro C2, Pro Q3, another compressor, and then a classic clipper at the end.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you
So this creates a very big slat type of sound, like a big wide sound, and it just sounds all compressed together.
close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gonna tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back. Gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth. I know you ain't that.
So what I'll do is I'll have two mix buses just so we can compare. We'll have two. So I'll mute this one. We'll call this mix bus 1. Okay, so now you guys should be able to hear. Make sure all the sounds are routed properly. Okay, so now I just need to send all the sounds over to mix bus 2. Make sure they're going there. Okay, so now we have all the sounds.
Close casket.
So now we're going to start from scratch. So usually in the beginning, I use a clipper because the clipper will determine the headroom as well as the harmonic content that we have. So let's use a standard clipper where we have standard clip is my favorite one. Let me up the buffer length too because we have a lot of plugins. All right, so usually I'll load this to like -2 to get started and then push the volume into the clipper.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been.
Then I'll switch this saturation mode to Soft Clip Pro.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole.
We'll see how much my CPU can do 8 times oversampling. Let's see.
Close casket. This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gonna tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back. Gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth. I know you ain't that. Better put that money down. Better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work. Just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for
Let's do it before and
nobody
after.
free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it. It's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch. I smack it up. Close casket.
So a lot of the muddiness is coming from that acapella. So let's turn off the acapella for a second. So here's before. So now I'll do corrective moves. Like for example, if I think there's too much bass on the side, what I'll do is load up an EQ. That's a mid-side EQ. And let's switch this to side, solo the side. So it turns out that bass isn't even really stereoizing the mids. So what we're gonna do is lower some more of this bass because it's fighting with that sample bass. And we'll do it before and after that EQ. Forgot to turn on the effects, that's why. So it sounds much cleaner with that EQ on the bass, just taking out some of those secondary harmonics on that bass so that it lets the sample breathe on the side. So that's what or in the middle, actually. Okay, so let's continue the mixing on the mix bus here.
This flow's mastered.
All right, so far so good. The beat is going through a clipper and it adds some saturation to add harmonics. And then we're running through an EQ where I just took some of the energy away from the mids and then boosted on the sides so that the low mids are a little bit wider on the sides. And then now we're gonna move into any compression. In this case, we don't need any compression, but here's where you could add multi-band compression. And another technique for saturation is adding a modulated envelope controlled saturator. So let's turn the mix to 0 and then turn this mod up to 100%. And basically every time something passes this threshold, it will saturate the sound. I'll exaggerate the effect. So it's adding that crunch every time the kick hits. Okay, so it's just buying you a little room with transients. So not needed, but it's just a little texture you could add.
Beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't poppin', baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back. Gonna take the game back.
Really, the track's done. So at this point, I would just add a limiter. I have L2 on my master track, but what I'll do is I'll use Ozone 11 because it's just magical. Their maximizer is magical. So here's where it's going to get loud. So turn down your headphones. Turn down your headphones. So I'm going to turn mine down even. Just turn my mic off.
This flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't poppin', baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back. Gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth. I know you ain't that. Better put that money down. Better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work. Just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have. It's not a habit, feel like a bad bitch. I smack it up, it's a closed casket. This flow's mastered, I'm a whole has-been. I know it's tough, we're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't poppin', baby? You're not. Gonna take that praise back, gonna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad.
So what I'll do now is I'll set up an automation so that we could hear both chains. So what I'll do is, let me see how to do this. Let's create a fader automation. So this is the first mix we had, and then we'll do the second mix. So hopefully this works and doesn't blow up my computer. So basically I have this set here to turn off right here, and then that will be off, and then we'll have mix 2 come in right at that spot here. Let's turn that off, on. So hopefully this doesn't blow up anybody's computer. I'll make sure that it's on and off as it goes. Okay, so let's hear it. Let's pray that this works as intended.
I gotta have it.
So we're gonna do mix 1 first that we had from the previous time I mixed this while making the beat, and then the new mix that we have.
I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, work for nobody but me. I gotta have it, it's not a habit. Feel like a bad bitch, I smack it up. This is a closed casket, this flow's mastered. I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that. Better put that money down, better throw that gas and tree. Better make it work, just like they've been working me. And when this album over, work for nobody for free. And when this album over, I'm a whole has-been, I know it's tough. We're spitting off beat in my.
So the first mix had more, when the kick hit, it lowered the bass. So it's more of an EDM pump. So that's the main difference between the mixes.
We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. We're spitting off beat in my old spot. How you gon' tell me I ain't stopping, baby? You're not. Finna take that praise back, finna take the game back. And I'm still spitting in their mouth, I know you ain't that.
So I kind of like the pump sound, but you could do that with a compressor. So I don't want to make this video 1,000 years long. That's how you mix beats. And in this case, a sample beat. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to learn more, look for the mixing fundamentals at busyworksbeats.com. Look for the mixing fundamentals. Okay, go to busyworksbeats.com. I'll leave a link below. Thank you guys for watching. It's Game from busyworksbeats.com. Peace.